Hello. Glad you were able to join me in my home and my relaxing over the weekend. I wanted to share some thoughts with you actually that I have been having over this weekend, and actually in relation to this new device I've just gotten. As you can see, it's the new Samsung Galaxy Tab. But I don't really want to talk about the technology. What I really want to talk about is how it affects my life and the way I actually do things in my personal space, the form factor of it all. Let me go back to the beginning, because I've tried to be reflective over this weekend as I've thought about what this device means in my life. I want to go back to the fact that I thought maybe this device, this tablet, is going to be like this, my phone, right? My smartphone, and it has the same software on it. And what is very interesting in it is how, in a way, it is so much like a phone. But it has subtle differences that start to make you ask significant questions. The first one is actually receiving calls on the phone, so that when the phone calls come in, they immediately go to speakerphone. That's the default. And what's interesting is you're walking down the street and it comes on, speakerphone comes on, and you start to have a chat, and of course other people can hear it on speakerphone, but then you ask, well, why isn't that normal? Isn't it a bit more odd to walk around with a Bluetooth piece in your head and just be talking to no one? Haven't you ever looked at a little one a little bit odd for talking to themselves? And we'd have this conversation if the person was walking next to you. But then that makes me start to ask even more significant questions. So for example, why is a phone this size? Was it just a matter of case where they said, well, let's just take a normal phone that we'd have in our house and well, let's figure out a way to put it in our pocket. But does that meet the task? Does that meet the need with what we're doing? And indeed, that might be the most significant question, because immediately I started to think, oh no, I can't fit this in my pocket. Well, I can fit it in my back pocket, but I'm not going to sit on this, am I? Because I'm going to be kind of scared about it. But what I did quickly discover, which might be very interesting, is it immediately fit into my suit coat pocket. Suit coat pocket here, wallet went in the other pocket, balanced it out quite nicely. But am I really going to be willing to walk around with this all the time? And as a geek, do I want to wear a suit coat all the time? Let's be honest. But let's talk a little bit more about how significant this all might be. So I've got all of these different devices in my life, and as you can see, they're slowly moving more towards the digital. Nonetheless, what really matters is not what's inside of these, it actually matters what you're doing with these devices and how they fit in your life. So for example, the tablet, again, I asked myself, is this the right size tablet? Should it be a bit bigger? So I went into the iPhone store and grabbed an iPad, a 9-inch one, and what I found immediately interesting is with the iPad, you have to grip it by its side or rest it on your forearm because it is the size of your notebook. So you're holding it about in that space. And what I like about this device is that it's palmable. I'm willing to lay in bed and put this over my head, and I'm not going to be worried about if this whacks me in the face if I'm laying in bed. Not that I'm suddenly going to drop the device on my face, but it's nice to know that it's actually light enough that it wouldn't hurt me. But to go even further back to this idea of how many devices do we really need in our pockets and in our bags? Are we eventually going to be able to replace the wallet with the phone that'll have the RFID or the information needed to pass on our credit information or our other identities inside of this? What about the book? Books are great on here. It's the first time that it's comfortable to read PDFs. It was never comfortable to read PDFs on here. And one of the killer apps, I think, for the tablet device is in actuality the academic diary. It's very enjoyable to be able to sit on this device and see the calendar along with what you're doing. And you have a fast enough input speed, unlike this, where you can actually enter your calendar data quite quickly. But then you start to ask yourself significant questions, as in, well, how do these devices get split up in terms of input speed? I'm about 120 words a minute typing on this device. Goes down to about 180 at this device. Significantly drops to around 40 or 60 around this device, and even drops a bit further down to this device, give or take. So what are the devices we're going to need, and how are we going to use them? The other thing that I find really interesting is that question of input-output. If I'm sitting here and I'm typing on my computer, my posture is literally different. My physicality is leaned over. I'm inputting data into a device. Where on this, all weekend long, I've literally been sitting at the sofa, relaxing, changing positions, resting it down low on my leg, and that's another interesting point. This device, I always held up here. My arm was cranked just a bit, and that significant difference of having a tight arm versus having a relaxed arm, even though this is slightly heavier, is a significant difference in the way we feel when we're actually reading the information we're reading. The last thing I'd kind of like to contemplate on is, what is this balance? Is there a balance? Is there kind of a yin and yang, a feng shui of devices in our life? Are we going to have a significant way of actually being able to work hard while at the same time relax with these devices? Will they meet all the things that these physical paper devices have provided us in the past? I think there's a lot of questions we still have yet to answer, and unfortunately the rate of technology is not going to tell us. What's going to tell us is the form factor. And the real significant question, of course, is that how many more devices will we really need after all of this?